We often think that grief only happens when we lose a loved one. What about when we lose ourselves, our identity, our confidence, our place in the world? And these are deep topics. This is grief. In this episode, I will guide you through different situations that may make us feel that we have lost ourselves, what to do about that, and how to continue reinventing ourselves in a beautiful way as we continue on our path. Hello, this is Ligia Houben, thanatologist and grief specialist. I am so glad we are here together again because this topic touches our heart. I hear so much people come in and tell me, Ligia, I don't recognize myself. I used to be this, I used to be that, and now I don't know who I am. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? If you have never done that exercise, I highly suggest you do it. And I'll tell you right away, you can do it in two ways. You can do it, writing on a paper, who am I, you put on top, and then you write. And then you can place yourself in front of a mirror. You can stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself, and you go deeper. More than look at how you look, right? No, you connect with your inner self. You connect with your essence through your eyes. And you can ask yourself there, who am I? Because we may lose ourselves when we go through different life transitions. And we will explore some of this. For example, if you are going through a divorce, you may not recognize the person you are now. And you may find some challenges in adapting to a new life. What about if you lost a loved one? Also, you may not know who you are now, because there's always, keep in mind, when we experience losses in life, there's always a change. And some of these changes are really hard. And at times we find challenges to adapt to these changes. And that may make us stay in that place of wondering who we are now. What I want for you to do at this moment is just place your hand on your heart and let's connect. And let's connect with the emotions you may be experiencing because of that loss of who you used to be. We can experience so many emotions. I will talk about each one of them. Sadness. We may feel sad of the person that we are now, that you do not recognize. And sometimes it is so painful that people may experience that deep grief, that deep loss. I want to share with you something. As I have mentioned in other episodes, I run a program of 8 weeks, and it's called Transforming Grief and Loss, here at the center in South Miami, Center for Transforming Lives. And last year, I have started the program because, as I said, it's 8 weeks. So in the second week, a lady came in, adorable lady. She came and she said, well, they told me about your program and I want to know if I can join you. I can join the program because it was second week. And I said, well, yes, you still have time to join. And she said, I want to know if the type of loss I am experiencing, your principles, because the program is based on my 11 principles of transformation, and she knew about it because someone else had told her so. So I said, well, do you want to share with me what type of loss you are experiencing? And she said this, I am experiencing the loss of the woman I used to be. It is not the first time I hear this. And when I heard that in the context of the group, of the program, I said, of course, the principals can help you. Please come in. Because the rest of the women who were in the group, this time was only women. There are sometimes, men and women, but this time were only women. It was because they have lost a loved one. However, I told her, let's do something, I said. I asked the ladies, to welcome, the person and all that. And I said, okay, please raise your hand if you have experienced the loss of the woman you used to be. And they did. Because yes, besides, losing their loved one, having lost their loved ones, they were also experiencing a sense of who were they before. So I want for you to pay attention and see what is making you feel that you have lost yourself, okay? And the emotions that you are experiencing. So we started with sadness. What about anger? Anger is such a valid emotion. Many times, based on my experience, some women have an issue in recognizing, that they're experiencing anger. Sometimes they say, I'm depressed. And behind that, there's anger. But there's a valid emotion. Emotions are emotions. What we want is to know what is making you feel angry. What is making you feel angry? Maybe you don't like the place you are now. You prefer to be the woman you used to be before. Maybe you have regrets, and that is also a valid emotion. Maybe you have regrets with how you are now and what happened in the past. Maybe you experience fear. Yes, fear of the future. How are you going to continue now that you don't recognize who you are? What is going to help you? We may experience all these types of emotion. You may be confused. Yes, confused, because you were used to be that person that you were before, and now how am I going to be, in this new stage in my life? Now, you can also experience shame. Some people experience shame. Some people experience guilt. And at the same time, some people experience relief. And that's interesting, because when we face a situation, for example, I'll tell you, one of the reasons that you may experience that you are not the person you used to be is that maybe before you were a caregiver and you were used to that role of being a caregiver. And when you are now no longer a caregiver, then you may have that void. So who am I now? On the other hand, you may have different emotions, because you may be sad on one hand and you may experience relief on the other. All emotions are valid. That's why I invite you to write down every single emotion. Write it down and ask yourself, what is making me feel this way? Now that I mentioned caregiving, there are different ways that we relate to caregiving, because one could be that one, that after taking care of our loved one, after a certain time, the person dies, and then we wonder, who am I? That happened to me, actually. I took care of my beloved mother, and I was her caregiver. When she died, that void, so huge, was there. And I wonder, who am I now? Without taking care of her, Now I have other areas in my life that I feel very fulfilled. And so I reevaluated this, the whole thing, and I processed. I did process how I felt. I was paying attention to every single emotion, okay? So that is one type of caregiving, that you may have this sense of, who was I before? The other one is when you are caregiving, you're taking care of a loved one, and it's through that transition, that period, that you are taking care of that person, and suddenly your life, the life you knew, stops. and then you have to adapt to the new situation. So the lifestyle that you were used to before, you don't have it anymore. So that is also something that may bring you that sense of, who am I now? Now that I am taking care of, let's say, my husband. That is a story that I hear a lot, wives taking care of their husbands. And then that may make the person, the woman, ask herself, now, who am I now? Okay? So all those things we want to pay attention, because yes, we validate that, but at the same time, I want for you to know that you can do something about it. When we face that type of loss of the person we used to be, we have two choices. One is stay there. Stay complaining, staying stuck. Why this happened to me, and going through all those emotions, but in a way that it becomes suffering. Because remember, one thing is to validate the emotions, and the other one is to stay suffering. Okay? So, two options. That is the first one. Staying in that place of suffering, complaining, resisting, that is even worse, and staying stuck. The other one, and it's the one that I want to bring your attention to, is, okay, who am I now? Who do I want to be? That is such a valuable exercise to do. I'll tell you something that I do with my groups and with, when I work with clients one-on-one, is that to write 3 essays. I mentioned before the one that you can write about who am I. Okay, in this moment, I'm going to tell you 3. First, who was I before the loss, before the transition that is making you wonder who you are now? Who was I before? And you write. Then the second one is the one that I told you before. Who am I now? You write it. And then the third one, and it's extremely important. Who do I want to be? We always have the freedom and the choice to write that. Because what happened, happened. But here you go into your future self, into your future self. So this is your old self, your past self. And you take lessons from that, and you take memories, and you take experiences from that. And then, now, you can choose, who do I want to be? I hope that you engage in that exercise. That is what I call reflective exercises. When I work with my clients, I don't like to say, this is a homework. I like to call that reflective exercises, okay? So take the time, sit down, sit with a cup of coffee, cup of tea, relax and write. This is your life. Validate how you are feeling with that sense of losing the person you were before, and now open your heart to embrace that possibility, that you go there, you imagine how you want your future self to be, and you write it down. I send you a hug. If this resonated with you, I would appreciate that you subscribe, that you like it, that you share it with others, and then we'll see each other again in the next episode. From my heart to yours.